I want to ask you a very simple question, and that is, do you ever find yourself getting drawn into non productive arguments or discussions with the narcissist? It's kind of like asking the question, is rain wet or do dogs bark? Well, yeah, of course you find yourself getting drawn into non productive arguments because that's what they do. Let's keep in mind that these people can be very difficult. They have a one way street way of thinking, and it's like, my way matters. That's all we need to know. I don't care what you think. And so when you try to stand up for yourself and say, well, I have some needs or feelings that I want to discuss, they'll just draw you into the big, huge argument with the idea that they're going to pummel you, and it gets you nowhere good. Now, I want to see if we can take kind of a twofold approach here as we talk about how to argue with a narcissist without getting drawn into a fight. And the twofold element is, first, I want you to understand what's going on inside of them so that you can have an advantage in terms of knowing what they're attempting to do to you in the midst of the arguing process. The more knowledge you have of what's cooking on the inside, then the more capable that allows you to be in your responses. And then second, I'm going to want to see if I can talk with you about a mindset. It's not about techniques, it's about a mindset that I want you to maintain as you are trying to manage your anger and tension and frustration and conflicts with that narcissist. So I hope you've got that concept down. Now, before we get too deeply into that, I do want to make you aware of a couple of links that we have below the video. One of the books that I have a link to is called The Anger Trap, and I think you're going to find that to be very pertinent to what we're talking about. Another book that I have a link to is When Pleasing You is Killing Me. And then Laura Carranza has a book called Ugly Love. And then we'd invite you to also subscribe to our network so that you can, or to our channel so that you can be apprised whenever we have new videos pop up. Now, let's take a look at some awarenesses that we can have first of what's cooking on the inside of that narcissist, because, like I say, the more you're aware, then the more you can keep from getting pulled into their game plan, because there's a lot of that going on. First and foremost, let's keep in mind that the narcissist is all about being in control. They have to be in control. And so it shouldn't surprise you that they're going to use control forms of communication. A lot of persuasion in their tone of voice. They're going to talk with you with that kind of tone of voice. A lot of stubbornness, closed-mindedness. They give ultimatums. These people will operate with that kind of a mentality, and the biggest mistake you can make is to get pulled into that game, because when you do, it's like, oh, I so have you going, and they just absolutely love it because it's game on, and they're going to try to win. And let's keep in mind that when we are in an argument, winning is not the goal. Getting your point across, being true to who you are, is the goal. A second thing we want to keep in mind is they genuinely feel better than thou. So as you go into any kind of disagreement, if you think, well, I want that person to have a much cleaner opinion of me, and perhaps if I can present my thoughts and needs and feelings in a clear way, then that person's going to walk away thinking, wow, what a nice person you are. It's not going to happen, because anytime that you discuss a disagreement, they already have this notion that says, well, I'm superior, and guess where that leaves you? You're in the low place, and you're not going to change their mind. So just know, going in, that's their game, and it's a game that you don't have to play. Another huge thing that we want to keep in mind is the narcissist lacks empathy. Now, in healthy relationships, it's not as though we're going to have a lack of disagreements, but we are going to have the presence of empathy in healthy relationships. You say what you want to say, and I'm thinking, okay, I can buy into that. And then I say what I want you to know, and then you say in reverse, that makes sense. Coming from you, I'll give you some respect. The narcissist can't think that way. If you think, well, maybe if I say things this way, then they're going to show some understanding. That didn't work. Okay, maybe if I try this, then they'll show some understanding. Well, that didn't work either. And if you continue in your arguing, hoping that this is going to be the day that I'm going to get that person to understand me, you're going to be waiting for a long time, because that's not in their skill set. They don't want to understand you. They don't feel the need to understand you, keeping in mind that they're extremely dismissive. So keep that in mind as you go into a disagreement. Now, another thought that you want to hold on to is the narcissist hates the notion that you feel competent within yourself. Because they're over there with a very critical mindset, because criticism is one of their primary ingredients. They're thinking, you don't know anything, you're an idiot, you reason poorly, anything that you think, say, and do that strays from me it's probably off base anyway. And so if you think that that they're going to actually respect the fact that you feel confident and competent, think again, because they will not. And then that also leads to another thought, and that is keep in mind that as you do engage with the narcissist, one of their goals is to keep you off balance. Now, they can do all sorts of communication techniques with you. For example, they'll ask cornering questions like, where did you come up with an idea like that? Or who told you that? Or don't you remember I said something to you last week? Are you just an idiot or what? Do you just not listen well? They'll ask you questions like that, and you'll notice that when those questions are asked, they're not being asked for the purpose of becoming enlightened. They're not being asked because they're wanting to have information. I say it's a cornering kind of question because the question is an attempt to make you feel foolish. Keeping in mind that one of the primary elements that's on the inside of the narcissist is a shame-based way of thinking. Chances are they were spoken to in a shaming way when they were growing up, or they certainly witnessed it a lot, and then that becomes the language that they use when they're engaging with you. So let's keep in mind that the narcissist has this kind of mindset that I just described pretty much every time. And if you think that it's your goal or it's your need to make that person respond differently than you, then you've already lost. So the question is, how do we engage in arguments with the narcissist without fighting about it? Now, again, I'm going to underscore it's a mindset that you want to maintain. You want to have proper thoughts on the inside of yourself so that as the narcissist is engaging with you, knowing they're trying to throw you off, then it's your own inner centeredness that you're drawing upon as opposed to the narcissist's responses to you. So the first thing I want you to ask yourself as you engage with the narcissist, as you change your mindset, do you make sense? Now, if the answer is no, I don't really make much sense, well, then don't argue. But let's suppose that you have a need, whether it's about how you're managing discipline at home or handling money or the way you're going to do your schedule or decisions you make at work, and that other person is over there just waiting to shoot you down. Well, the question is, do you believe in you? Because if you do, that becomes the foundation for you to communicate in the most effective way. That being the case, a second thought that I want you to consider is go ahead and state your convictions in a plain tone of voice. Now, keep in mind what I said just a few minutes ago. The narcissist likes to use a lot of persuasion and insistence, and then when you get caught in the counter-persuasive style and you say, but you don't understand, here's why I feel the way that I do, it won't work because the narcissist will think, I got you going, don't I? I'm just going to keep doing this until I just drive you all the way into the ditch. So maintain a calm, plain tone of voice. No persuasion, no pleading, no coaxing, no convincing. Then third, when you get the inevitable pushback, and notice my use of the word inevitable because it will happen, you don't need to go into a very quick or strong defensive posture. The more the narcissist gets you defending yourself, it's their way of saying, I'm just going to keep poking holes, and as you defend, then that gives me more ammunition to poke more holes. And so the more defensive you are, it's like handing them bullets. So if you say, well, the reason I feel this way is this, or what I'm trying to explain is, or last week we had that, the more you go into that mindset, then they just enjoy it because it just means you're in the dogfight and they're just going to bite you in the legs all over the place. Now, knowing that to be the case, the fourth thing that I want you to hold on to is remain decisive. Keeping in mind that one of the primary things the narcissist is attempting to do is to keep you off your game. It's not your job to force that other person to understand. It is your job to stand firmly for who you are. And so when you say something like, well, here's the decision I've made, and the narcissist tells you how stupid you are, okay, they can think anything they want. I go back to my first question I asked, do you make sense? And if the answer is, yeah, I make sense, well, then if the narcissist doesn't agree with that, it's on them. It's not on you. You don't have to convince them or try to get them on your side. So don't go into a deep defensiveness. You might want to explain yourself once, give them the benefit of the doubt, and then if that doesn't work, you still stand for it anyway. And so a fifth point that I want you to hold on to is act out your assertiveness. Rather than talking, for example, if you say, I plan on doing this with my calendar, and the narcissist says, I think that's a terrible idea, and then you get into a verbal battle with them, don't do that. Just let them know, well, nonetheless, I call it the nonetheless approach. That's the decision I've made, and so you do it. Or if the narcissist says, I don't want you to go and be with these people over here, let's say it's family members or other business associates, and you think it's a good idea, do it. And if they gripe and complain and moan and groan, that's on them. Sometimes if you need to set stipulations, then do that. Establish your boundaries, but act upon it rather than trying to get their acceptance or trying to get their concurrence, because the concurrence will not happen. And then you can see this leads to a sixth part of the mindset, and that is, I'm not trying to win. Winning is not the goal. Standing up for who you are is the goal. See, we're going to start with the presumption that the narcissist thinks poorly of you, and whatever you think, say, or do is not going to change that presumption. It's kind of sad to think that way, isn't it? But that's where you are with that person. And so you go ahead and have your own firmness, you have your own good standing within yourself, and if the narcissist doesn't like it, that's on them. Now, let's close with this thought. I find it easy to be in a good, clean argument with someone when that other person is willing to coordinate with me. You know, I say what I say and you say what you say, and then we each respect each other. The mark of maturity is when you can manage your emotions and communications cleanly, even when the other person is being immature and off base. So that's the goal that you have. Stay consistent with good, clean, healthy emotional well-being, and knowing that the narcissist is not a healthy person, you hold firm to what you know is wisest and best. That person does not have to set your pace.